now we have a bit of a ramble. I've probably talked about this movie on the TV full-length regular studio TV show before, but probably not as formlessly as this. This is a movie from 1977, one of the biggest movies of 1977, one of the biggest movies of the 70s. It's Smokey and the Bandit. It's one of my favorite movies. It's a movie that I could turn on at any point if it's on TV and just watch to the end or watch for a while and just dive right into it. It is infinitely quotable to me. I do all the time. I think in terms of lines from this movie all the time, whether I say them out loud or not. It is a film I saw at the age of 3 years old at a drive-in, the Claremont Drive-In in Claremont, New Hampshire, on a giant screen. As a little kid, you know, everything is so much larger in your memory. It was a screen the size of a mountain that Burt Reynolds and Sally Field and Jerry Reed and Jackie Gleason were tearing ass across. And I still remember what I laughed at as a kid. I still remember the feeling of sitting in a car seat, much like Frog, and watching those people go crazy, vehicular mayhem. And it's always stuck with me. I saw it as a little kid. I saw it on TV when it would be on the ABC Sunday Night Movie or whatever. Saw it on HBO, rented it. It's a film that probably since high school, not a year goes by, obviously, that I don't watch it once or twice. Anybody suggests Smokey, and I'm at the ready to watch it at any given moment, even if I've just finished watching it. Want to watch it again? Yes. So what is it? If you've never seen Smokey and the Bandit, it's a tale of a man with a dream. Basically, the story goes a little something like this. Big and Little Enos Burdett, who are two rich, I don't even know if this ever gets into why they're rich, but these two rich guys challenge Burt Reynolds, who is the bandit. His CB handle is the Bandit. His name is Bo Darville. He is a trucker who is known for showing off and having a truck with a huge canvas, a huge painting on the side that looks like a horseback robbery. And he is known for just taking challenges and doing crazy things, and he's a legend. They find him at a truck rodeo, and they bet him, I believe, and they could be wrong, you think I'd know by now, I believe it's $80,000 they bet him. He can't go from Atlanta to Texarkana, Texas, to pick up a truckload of Coors beer and bring it back in a certain number of hours. An unlikely number of hours. And he takes that bet, and with his friend Cletus Snow, played by Jerry Reed, country singer Jerry Reed, who had been in a few movies at this point. He had been the villain in Burt Reynolds' Gator about a year before. A pretty nasty villain. If you only know Jerry Reed from Smokey and the Bandit, watch Gator. He is effectively creepy and nasty in that movie. Funny enough, if you watch Gator, Burt Reynolds looks just almost exactly like he does in Smokey, down to wearing the red shirt. So Cletus and the Bandit take up the challenge that the Burdetts have laid down. They have the truck that they usually drive together, but with the money that the Burdetts have given the Bandit, he has bought a speedier than that, black Trans Am. This arguably another star of this film, an iconic movie car. The car that once you've seen the movie, if you're like me, you kind of want to have one of those. So the Bandit's going to run blocker, which means he's going to drive ahead and watch for Smokies, watch for police, and let the snowman who's driving the truck filled with contraband let him know when there's trouble. And wouldn't you know, trouble comes in the way of a runaway bride. A bride flags down the Bandit, Carrie, her handle being Frog, Sally Field, and she becomes the co-pilot with the Bandit. And that leads to trouble because wouldn't you know, she has just run away from a wedding to the son of a Southern sheriff, that sheriff being Buford T. Justice from the great state of Texas, portrayed by Jackie Gleason, in a role that is so fabulous that you could easily forget that he ever did anything other than this movie. Jackie Gleason so owns this character in this movie that you think about it and you're like, oh yeah, he did The Honeymooners too before this. The fact that it's the same guy is something that I have to reconcile when I'm watching this movie. Jackie Gleason is hilarious in this movie. He has his own way of talking, pretty profane, a lot of strange profanity and insults that he is throwing back and forth. and he is just incensed and insulted that this woman would run off and leave his son at the altar. He decorated up a whole town at a cost of $40, and he wants to get her back, and so that she and his son can be married. So Jackie Gleason is driving his police cruiser with his, dare I say, not terribly bright son next to him, and it's high-speed pursuit. He finds out that she's with the bandit, and he's going to nail the bandit across state lines, which is not generally how the law works. He doesn't want help from anybody else. He's in high-speed pursuit. He wants to put the evidence in the car. So basically, this becomes a chase movie. It's a romance, it's a comedy, it's an action movie. The stunts are fabulous. This film was written by Hal Needham, king of the stuntmen. He was a very prominent stuntman in Hollywood for many years, and he got a shot at directing this movie for Universal. He had written the script, and interestingly enough, I found over the years of just obsessing about this movie and finding out what I could about it, it didn't occur to me. I was listening to a Gilbert Gottfried Amazing Colossal podcast, and they interviewed this guy who was a writer for The Tonight Show for many years. And it turned out that this guy did a script polish or a draft on Smokey and the Bandit. So Hal Needham wrote the basic story. This Tonight Show writer did a once-over. And then it started to occur to me how Tonight Show heavy Smokey and the Bandit is. You have, as Big Enos Burdett, you have... boy, I'm blanking on his name, and I really shouldn't. Pat McCormick, who was a brilliant writer. Pat McCormick's stories are the stuff of legend. I won't get into any right here. But he was a Tonight Show writer. So you have two Tonight Show writers involved with this good old boy movie. Paul Williams as Little Enos Burdett, who was a Tonight Show guest regular, and Burt Reynolds, who was a regular on The Tonight Show. It is so bizarre to me that you think about this as this good old boy Southern movie when all of these, like, big-time Hollywood Tonight Show people were involved with it. And it's something that's never really talked about, but it kind of struck me dumb, or dumber, as it were. So you have this movie. It's a heck of a lot of fun. It was rated PG back then, loaded with profanity, all coming pretty much from Jackie Gleason's character. Outstanding stunt works. There's a bridge jump that is the stuff of legend that actually has been recreated. There's actually this thing now, not this year because of what's going on, but there's this thing that's been going on for years called the Bandit Run, where people who have that style of Trans Am, they make the drive. They make the drive from where the film was, the two locations in the film. They go from the fairgrounds in Atlanta to Texarkana and back. And it's not a race, it's a rally. So I've seen footage online that it brings a tear to my eye, where it's this endless line of people in black Trans Ams making the drive, and they have the hats on and the fake mustaches. And there's a truck that somebody has made that recreates the truck from the movie. And it's really cool to see. It's a fun thing. I believe they do it for charity. And occasionally at one end or other of this run, they have a stuntman in a black Trans Am replicate that bridge jump. And I just think that's cool. To me, a flying car is never not going to be cool. Preferably, it's not real life and nobody's getting hurt, but you put a flying car in a movie and I'm there. Flying motorcycle is a different story. Hal Needham tried that in Megaforce. Stinkeroo. Anyway, Smokey and the Bandit came out, and against all odds, it was a phenomenon. This movie made a ton of money back in '77. As I said, I saw it at a drive-in. It played drive-ins. It played indoor theaters. I think they thought it was probably going to be a regional hit for the Southern audience, but it broke huge. Burt Reynolds had been a star for a long time. He'd been on TV since the 50s, but this was the movie that he exploded and became a superstar, and arguably made many poor choices after that. Jackie Gleason, hadn't really done anything for a decade or two. He had his TV show. He had done TV specials. Even in the 70s, he was doing occasional TV specials and honeymooners reunions and things like that. But he hadn't had a theatrical success since the early 60s, since The Hustler, probably. Jackie Gleason had been in movies, but he hadn't been in anything quite like this. And interestingly enough, I heard an interview with William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist and Sorcerer and French Connection, and Jackie Gleason was actually one of the first choices Friedkin had for the Popeye Doyle character that ultimately went to Gene Hackman. He thought that Jackie Gleason as this tough Irish cop might have been a good idea, and that would have been an entirely different movie. Anyway, and Sally Field had been done stuff forever, but this was this movie that wasn't likely to be the hit that it was, and it was gigantic. Everybody wanted to, it capitalized on the CB fame, the CB phenomenon at the time. And there had been other movies about Southern sheriffs. There had been other movies about CBs. But you had all these movies that came in the wake of Smokey. Many more car chase movies. And there had been Guy and a Girl in a Car movies before too. You had Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, which was similar in many ways. But you had all these trucker movies in the 70s. You had these car movies. And again, Smokey might not have been the first, but damn, it was the best. I could watch this movie and go on about this endlessly. So that came out and it was a huge hit. And then everybody went on to do some other things. But, you know, in Hollywood, if a movie does really, really well, especially once we get into the 70s, late 70s, sequel is the natural thing. Let's get them together and do it again. Well, it took them 3 years to do it again. And arguably that was 2 years too many. I have a lot of friends who are big fans of Smokey like I am. And they mostly agree that Smokey and the Bandit 2 is not very good. Smokey and the Bandit 2 was written by Brock Yates, the man who created the actual Cannonball Run race, the man who wrote the Cannonball Run movie, which is my favorite movie. I'll give you a nice ramble on that some other time. Directed by Hal Needham again. You get Burt, Sally, and Jerry Reed back. You throw Dom DeLuise in the mix. You're basically, you know, mixing up the formula that's going to lead to Cannonball Run. But it just doesn't work. You have Jackie Gleason playing multiple roles. Jackie Gleason calls in his brothers who are also in law enforcement, who are all their wacky characters like you would have seen in the Jackie Gleason show. It just doesn't work. In this movie, we see Bandit, and he's a washed-up, drunk, bitter about his life and that he's lost Sally Field. And they sort of get back together and try to do another run. The Burdettes want him to deliver a pregnant elephant to some campaign rally because Big Enos is running for governor somewhere. I believe that's the storyline. This is one of those movies that I own. Every time an amount of time passes, I'm like, I'm going to try Smokey 2 again. Maybe this time it's going to work for me. And it never does. It just does not quite work. And it's a damn shame because at the end of the first Smokey and the Bandit, not to give anything away, the end of the first Smokey and the Bandit, they complete the challenge and Big Enos says, go up to Boston and bring back some clam chowder in what is an impossible amount of time. And they say you're on and they drive off into the sunset and that's how the movie ends. And I hold firm that that should have been the second movie. It would have been so much better to see Smokey and the Bandit in the city, to see the Bandit and the Snowman and the Sheriff tearing ass through the streets of New York City, driving through big cities. Seeing a good old boy in the city would have been really cool. Seeing cool car stunts, cool Hal Needham car stunts in a city, in a more urban environment would have been fantastic. There would have been so much more to it. Instead, we get Smokey 2, and it's just not good. It came and it went. It wasn't very big of a success that I remember. I didn't even remember it coming out, and I was old enough to have known about it at the time. A few more years pass, and a third Smokey and the Bandit comes out. I don't remember this getting a theatrical release. I first heard about it when it hit HBO, Smokey and the Bandit 3. Interesting story behind this. Originally, it was shot as Smokey is the Bandit. This version of the film doesn't exist. Nobody has seen it since I think a test audience maybe, or the studio heads maybe. The idea with this movie was that Jackie Gleason was playing Buford T. Justice and the Bandit. Some weird psychological thing. I don't know how it would have worked. There are stills online of him dressed as the Bandit. There is a trailer that I have actually where he talks about, and I think if you go on YouTube you can see it, there's a trailer where he talks about having to beat the Bandit, he has to become the Bandit. So it was going to be released that way, but they saw that it didn't work and they scrapped it. And they reshot the Bandit scenes with Jerry Reed as the Snowman dressing like the Bandit for some reason. So you have Jerry Reed and Colleen Camp. They are driving some inflatable shark on the top of the Trans Am for some reason for Big and Little Enos Burdett, who sort of like the Hal Needham movie The Villain, which was a comedy western with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Anne Margaret and Kirk Douglas that was basically like a live-action Roadrunner, where Kirk Douglas was trying to stop Schwarzenegger from doing something with all these cockamamie Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote kind of things. That's kind of what Big and Little Enos Burdett do in Smokey 3. They're trying to thwart the progress of Jerry Reed as the faux bandit. And again, Sheriff Justice is there chasing him down with a car that is repeatedly getting damaged and falling apart. To me, there's a couple of funny lines in Smokey 3 from Big and Little Enos, who we see a lot more. In the other films, you just pretty much see him at the beginning and the end. Here, they're in the movie throughout. Pat McCormick is funny. Paul Williams is funny. To me, Smokey 3's greatest value is Jackie Gleason as Buford T. Justice one more time. He's very funny. It's not a very good film. The theme song is okay. The theme song in Smokey 2 I love, actually. Texas Bound and Flying from Jerry Reed's a great song. The third one, we get Lee Greenwood, who would become huge during the Iraq War, #1 with God Bless the USA. He does The Bandit Express, fun song, but not a very good movie. So Smokey and the Bandit 3 ended the franchise, and really, arguably, I think it's 2 films too many. Later on, there was a series of TV movies, part of this thing called the Action Pack, that was a Universal Studios syndicated package. It's where Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, originally came from. It was these big directors doing these rotating wheel of 90-minute movies that were basically TV shows. And they did one called Bandit, and it had, I can't remember his name, it was Brian something. He was a soap opera actor, and it was really cheap and really lame and set in the modern day, and it was theoretically a bandit kind of thing. I watched a couple, and it wasn't worth it to me. You can find those on DVD. I believe there's a set of all the Smokey movies plus these TV movies that are available. I wouldn't bother trying to find those. At any rate, Smokey and the Bandit, I love it so much. Why do I love it? It is about flaunting authority. It is about the freedom of the road. It is about driving really fast. It is about being cool and showing off. And it is a damn funny film. It is one of the things that most makes me happy in this life. If you've never seen any of the Smokey and the Bandit films, I highly recommend them. They're available on Blu-ray. Blu-ray has a great documentary called The Bandit, which is about the relationship between Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds, feature length, and about the making of the movie. And to watch the movie, unfortunately, you have to pay to rent it digitally. We watched it the other night on Netflix. We watched it on Amazon Prime. It was like $4. At any rate, $4 well spent. I love Smokey and the Bandit. If you like Smokey and the Bandit, what's your favorite line? I have so many. That's not even a dime. Daddy is a favorite in Decorating Up a Town at the cost of $40. And of course, the give me a Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper and make it fast. I'm in a goddamn hurry. I have a shirt. I will see you later. Thanks for watching.